This is The Baseline, discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Welcome, everybody. You are tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warrenshaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. Big day for The Baseline. We are very excited to be able to continue forward in 2024, always discussing the hot button topics of the NBA. And when those opportunities present themselves, to be able to have great conversations and to be able to have really awesome guests to be able to delve into those conversations. I break out my pom-poms. I'm sure my man Shaw kind of does it on the low key, but we are so excited to be able to have a great edition of The Baseline with a 10-year NBA veteran, currently color commentator and analyst for the Houston Rockets. And we're just excited because we've been following his career. We've watched him do his thing on and off the court. And it's just great to be able to have Ryan Hollins joining us on this week's edition of The Baseline for us to have a really great conversation about NBA veteran transition and the effects of it. Ryan, thank you so much for hopping on board with this, man.
No problem, fellas. You already know, man. So thanks for the love and happy to be here.
Ryan, the first thing I wanted to ask you before we delve deep into the conversation is how's life like right now commentating for the Houston Rockets? I don't think anybody anticipated this team's turnaround and the level of success that this team has had, the early outset of this season. So what's it like for you to be able to sit there and break down a team that a lot of people have obviously slept on through the course of this NBA season?
Man, it's been a blast for myself. The last 2 years were fun, but obviously it's different, when you're of competitive nature and you're developing, and you got to appreciate guys developing and coming into their own and taking advantage of their opportunities. But now, it's a chance to go out and compete and go after these guys, these big name stars, see our guys compete against LeBrons and the KDs and the Lukas and try to put their best foot forward. And I think just a refreshing blend of watching our young guys develop who've been there, the veterans who are established in the league, the presence that they bring, and then seeing that mesh all together under Coach Ime Udoka, who's no nonsense, man. Like all the excuses, all to just go figure it out is gone. It's like, nah, we need you guys to produce. So it's been fun to watch and just really exciting from both sides. And if you're a fan of the game of basketball, you like to see things done the right way. And that's what we're seeing in Houston. We've gained the league's respect more so, and especially from the fan base and I think an NBA-wide respect of, like, hey, things are getting done there the right way.
Yeah, well, Ryan, I think real quick, just tapping in before we get on to our main point. I think what Houston has done, and we're familiar with Ime. We were Celtics or are Celtics fans, so understanding what he did for that roster and getting them to the NBA Finals and so forth and so forth. But there was one question that you were on another pod. Our colleague Jabari was unable to join us here today, but you're on Mad Boosie is talking about the Rockets, and I was just wondering, just your thoughts on Jalen Green specifically. I really thought he was going to have not necessarily a bigger year, but he's just acquiesced to what Udoka wants there in that space. Can you talk a little bit how he's matured and what you maybe expected from him coming into the season, what he's actually produced on the floor?
Man, he just went off. These last two games I thought were probably the best back-to-back games from him that we've seen the whole season. In Charlotte, he went off, and we've seen, big numbers in a half from Jalen, but in the second half, he just had a will like, hey, like, we're not going to lose. I'm going to do anything in my power to make sure my team wins. And the second night, he came in and, obviously the Nets really kind of walled the paint off, and he hit big three-pointers. He hit shots that the team needed, and then he made really some huge plays defensively that kept the Rockets in the ball game. So I think seeing Jalen Green compete in a winning standpoint is huge to watch. I think that's the growth for him. And you got to understand there are growing pains because he's being challenged in ways that he's possibly never seen, whether it was high school, USA basketball, and being leaned on in avenues that he hadn't been before. So there have been a bit of growing pains there, but I love to see that Jalen has reacted. Like, are you going to quiver or, kind of make excuses or react? And you kind of still forget, man, how young this kid is. This is at 21, 22 years old, what were you doing, man? I did not have my life together. I was very much figuring things out. Like that, it took a while. Sometimes you got those old souls from the young guys, but you see the development from Jalen, you see the excitement, from him. But it's just fun to watch because I want everybody to notice, like Jalen Green, say whatever you want about, like he has that it factor. Like he has that, like, hey, we drew up, we had the best defense in the world to stop him. He just found a way to make a shot. Like he has that it factor. He can do things that you can't teach. So allowing those skills that he has to develop and knowing that you have a guy, because when we say the it factor, it's hard to explain. Like he has it. What happened? He just won. We don't know how he won. I don't know. He just did it. Like Jalen has that. So that it can mesh and grow under the hard-nosed coaching and accountability coach Ime Udoka is going to take some patience, but you don't see too many guys in the league with that, what he has.
You know, you bring up a really interesting word or phrase, old soul, Ryan. And I think it allows us to seg right into our conversation about the NBA veteran transition, what the expectations are, and how that has an impact in the current NBA climate, in the current NBA culture, so to speak. You're a 10-year NBA veteran, and I think you can say that proudly. You know what I'm saying? You went through it all. For you, how important was it for you to have NBA veterans showing you the way to not only play in the league, but also to mainstay in the league, as you're seeing right now in the transitions of what this Houston Rockets team looks like? Jalen Green leaning on, say, Fred VanVleet or Dillon Brooks, who in their rights are considered as NBA veterans because they, you know what I'm saying, they put in the work. They've been in playoffs. VanVleet is an NBA champion. Like, how important is that in the culture of the NBA locker room for young guys like Jalen Green to have that true NBA veteran presence around them? And do NBA veterans by themselves also buy into the idea that they relish in the idea that they can teach these young guys up so that they have that old soul in them?
Carl, for young players, everything. And for the older players, they don't always realize that. And that's why you got to take your hats off to the Rockets front office to go out and get those vets that understand their role, the Reggie Bullocks, the Jock Landells, the VanVleets, the Jeff Greens. Jeff Green is a world champion, man. He still got a lot to go, okay? But you don't see Jeff Green going, man, I'm trying to get my next $50 million contract. I got to go get 30 tonight. Jeff Green is like, I know who I am as a player. When you call upon me, I'm going to be ready. But even more so, I'm going to make sure these young guys are where they need to be. He understands his place. For me, it started with my trainer, Rico Hines. Rico's probably the most, I guess, famous or well-known to do trainers, and I was privileged to have him. The first guy in my career that put a mold on me. But he, as a young guy, my mindset was like, yo, man, like I want to be Garnett and Tim Duncan and all that. He's like, no, dog, like we're gonna be here for 10 years. Like on those days off, we're gonna work, we're gonna grind, we're gonna love it. Like we want longevity, we want that. So he imprinted that into my mind before I even got to the NBA. And then when I got there, it's crazy. Like he had my mindset so much so that I was watching Brevin Knight. Okay, BK, you've been here for. I was watching Brevin Knight and Othello Harrington. BK, you've been here for 13 years. Okay, you coming to the game wearing a suit and tie. Okay, ready when it's time to practice. You're focused and ready for practice. Hey, you're in the training room early, making sure that your body's up to par. So for me, I was blessed to be able to see those guys at an early age. Like, okay, Othello, you've invested in your body. You're telling me you got training room equipment at your house to prepare yourself. Hey, you still are in the weight room getting it. Juwan Howard. I like Juwan Howard. Oh, hey, he's been a coach from day one. This is from a long time, okay? Juwan, I'm like, Juwan, how do you still have athleticism and kind of dunking and doing things? Because he's like, Ryan, at a certain age, you work on those things. So I'm working on my footwork. I'm in the weight room, working on defensive slides. Because I'm thinking, I'm about to cook this old man. I'm about to bake Juwan Howard. He went over and wore me out. I'm begging him to play one-on-one. I'm like, dang, old man, you still got it. You still got game. So those are the things that I realized, like, hey, this is a part of the longevity. And then I will bug those dudes, man. I'd ask a million questions, man. And even to these days, those veteran guys have helped me in success on the other side, still picking their brains, still asking a lot of those questions. Brevin Knight doing a great job in broadcasting for the Memphis Grizzlies. Juwan Howard, and we don't need to talk about his success. We know that. Othello Harrington over there with the Knicks doing a good job there. So I'm just watching the journey, man, watching the journey first and foremost. But I'm glad that I had like the Rico Hines in the world and a great support system kind of telling me not thinking I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, but telling me that that's what I need to look at. That's what I need to see.
Ryan, I think that's amazing insight, and we would expect nothing less, I think, coming from you and giving us the real. So I want to ask, from your perspective, 10 years in, what made you decide I'm not going for year 11? And kind of what goes into that process for any NBA veteran who might be, what? Do I try to go one more year, or is this going to be it for me? And how do you set things up for yourself, like post-career?
Well, for me, I think about year 5 or 6, Anthony Parker, another veteran I looked upon. I think last time I saw he was in our Orlando Magic front office, working, kind of bringing in and making big time decisions on guys that they will go after. And the one thing he was like, "Hey, go do all the programs that the NBA, the NBPA offer, and go see what sticks. Like, just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks." I didn't know what the fallback is like, I'm gonna just be a coach, I'm gonna just be, whatever. And I was like, man, let me go figure out what all these things do. And I got the bug essentially from the NBPA and that broadcast program. It was like, I want to do this. Like, I want to be a part of this. This is something that I have passion for. So then I essentially started to work towards it. And it's funny you say that. I spent 1 year overseas because I got a family, and I was like, man, take the G League route and like hang around, or like go get some guaranteed money. I had 30 a month overseas. So I went to go do that. And the way they treat overseas players is disgusting. They waive you. They don't pay your money depending on the situation you go to. They got an excuse for an excuse. And at the end of the day, man, you're not their people. I always say, people talking about racism in America. I don't want to get real deep on y'all, but racism has nothing on nationalism. As soon as you step foot on their soil, you are not supposed to be here. They don't care about you. Go figure it out. Oh, go to court. Let's see if you're going to find it out. And I just said, man, I have a family. I can't put my family through this. So then it was time to bet on myself and go into the broadcasting road. And, that's really why I ended up doubling down so hard. So for me, that's what the transition looked like. I mean, I could probably, to this day, I play in the big three. I could still be overseas playing basketball. There's nothing with my body, but it was my mind. And then my father raised me to have too much pride in to say that this is all that you are. Like, I was blessed to be 7 feet, live my dreams, but like, is this all you are? So as your body declines, you just go chasing this dream or chasing this image that they've given of you. I'm so much more than that. So I'm glad and blessed to find something that I love in broadcasting. Then I had to go work. Then I had to do some soul searching to find opportunities because, I won the NBA All-Star for a backup center. People weren't beating the doors down to say, Ryan Hollins, we want to put you on your show. I had to put in a lot of work and prove and establish myself on that side. And I'm privileged to even have that opportunity because, come on, man, like, at the end of the day, like, I talk about basketball for a living. I'll do it for free. Carl, Warren, we'd be in the barbershop and we would be arguing about LeBron and Kobe and those guys for free. So we get a chance to do it and make some little money and enjoy it. So for me, man, that's what it's about.
Well, this seems to be the season of big man talk, not just big man balling. I mean, we see, Kendrick Perkins as an analyst on ESPN and yourself. I've seen you on TV. Your personality, your enigmatic. I had no doubts that this was for you, that this was a space that I think if you really wanted to be in it, you'll find your way. And I'm glad that you are a part of that culture. How amazing is it that there is that much aptitude and appreciation? And, look, you can make the argument that Shaquille O'Neal, right? He's the table setter because he's been on TNT for such a long time. And he helped, I believe, open up the doors so that there is a viable voice that is coming from the big men. I think people get too much of the stereotype about big guys are just, slow and, they're not true people who can articulate and analyze and provide insight to the game. It's always leaning on the backcourt players, guards, or maybe coaches. I love the fact that yourself and guys like Perkin, you're getting those opportunities. What's it like to see big man balling become front and center again in the threshold of the NBA culture? Like, I would have to think that a lot of that comes down from the voices down to such as yourself. And then now what you're speaking to in order for you to have viable voices for people to really understand how important the center position is in the game of basketball.
Man, I love it. You hit it right on the head. The safe space is to go get a coach. But a safe space is to get a point guard, right? Because big men are dumb. All y'all do is set screens. Y'all just set screens to get rebounds, and the idea is anybody can do that, right? Just go set a screen and get a rebound, right? But shout out Brendan Haywood also, man. And shout out Big Perk, man. But when you play years in the league, I had to know, like, when you really, like, we really dive in. Here's the reality, Colin Warren. I got to know everybody's position on the floor. I got to know where we're supposed to be on offense and defense. And on defense, you realize the point guard is the point guard on offense. But on defense, I'm the point guard. Why? Because I see everything. On offense, the point guard sees everything. On defense, I see everything. So I'm calling and putting people in different spots. Learned a lot of that from Kevin Garnett. So I have to know the game. I know a scouting report. Once I see a player, I'll never forget them. So those are the intangibles that come on to the other side. And I'm a hoop head, man. We could talk basketball till 2, 3 in the morning. I love the game, but I had to learn how to take my love of the game and my knowledge and learn it in broadcasting. So I had to go hard body and learn what the broadcast format is, and then I already knew the hoop side, so that can't be taken away from anybody. And even as a big man, I had to prove that I know basketball because they assume I'm just grabbing rebounds and dunking the ball. Then I had to learn the broadcast side because then they say they want you to be a special guest on the show. And I'm like, I want to be more than a guest. I can do your job on the show. That's very intimidating to some people. And then I had to merge those two worlds into being Ryan Hollins and being myself, to where I had to get to a place where I was comfortable smiling, laughing, joking, being myself, giving you some facts, still speaking the King's English, and then giving you a little bit of both. So, and I really had to learn this thing. But, when you got a family at home, you got mouths to feed. You get on your grind a whole little different. A lot of people don't know what that's like. So to play 10 years in the league, I wasn't by far not the most talented. I was just willing. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to do the things I need to do. And a lot more talented people made a lot of silly mistakes by not just showing up every day to work and doing the right things. So for me, I really had to find my way on this side. But you're right. I had to prove myself that I wasn't just, because at first glance, what do you say, Carl? People, I had to address the way I was identified as, 10-year NBA backup center, right? And you had to go, dang, he kind of knows the game. Dang, I kind of like him. He's got some personality. So I had to show people who I am, man. But I had to be realistic about the way that things are constructed to be. And, like a salmon, kind of swam upstream, because a lot of big men don't get those opportunities. And I knew I couldn't be good. I had to be great at my job to get opportunities, and I had to be willing to do different things, because I've beaten and opened doors that weren't supposed to be open for guys like myself. So shout out Shaq, shout out Charles, shout out the people who are opening up these spaces where players can be themselves, and it's not just the stereotypical mindset of we'll take a coach or a point guard the safe way.
Ryan, you touched on something very poignant. I'm going to harken back to what you said earlier, because I say this all the time. When I was writing a little bit more, I was like, nobody's any one thing. And I think players often get pigeonholed, but sometimes players maybe even pigeonhole themselves. And you said, listen, are you more than just a basketball player? Can you do something different? And I guess my question to you here is, do you feel some veterans, when the twilight is near, they haven't figured that part of it out? Do they see themselves as just a basketball player? They don't know what it's like to be more than that, and that's why they hold on for as long as they do.
Well, that's a real thing, man. And this is more than just ball players. We have a big life shift that sometimes we aren't ready for as NBA players, and then you have to, like, there's this midlife identity crisis. And hey, man, if I didn't get to play 10 years, I would have had to figure that thing out, or injury away. I would have had to figure out who I was. So I was blessed that it's crazy, man. I was on a 10-day in Memphis, kind of going in and out. So I got to kind of transition a little bit, get used to life at home. Because think about it, man. From October or August on to April or however, you're used to, your body clock says I'm in the season, I'm playing basketball. And I got to see what life was like in the middle of February or December to be at home. And I remember, man, it's crazy. I never thought it would happen. I got a call. I was going to play for the Memphis Grizzlies. Man, they call you, you got to be ready to go. And man, I got to the airport and I was getting something, and I darn near cried, because I was like, dang, I miss my family. I don't want to leave my family. I've gotten in a routine there. So I got a chance to gracefully transition through the time. But unfortunately, a lot of guys, it is hard for them to identify different. Warren, imagine if every time you walked in a room, people just lit up and celebrated you and said, hey, man, that's the guy from the Utah Jazz. That's the guy from the Knicks, man. We know him. And then you walk in a room at a certain point in time, they don't light up for you no more. They don't do those things. So if you don't have a chance to grasp who you are as a man and a person, individual, you're holding on to those things that were only temporary. It is a very hard transition for guys. And NBA players, we're very competitive. We're very prideful. We have to have that unbelievable belief in ourselves just to make it to the NBA. So then all of a sudden you got to be realistic. And it is tough for some of our brothers. So my heart goes out. Those are like, I guess you say, millionaire problems that people don't want to hear about. But it can be very tough on your mental health. And I shout out, and I hope you give grace to some of our guys as we transition and we move on and we compete when, the world, you're under that microscope of the world, or your life drastically changes, because that goes for just about everybody. Obviously, it's a bit nicer when you have millionaire problems, but, when you ain't a millionaire no more and you still spend a millionaire money, that can severely affect you. And hats off to the NBA and the NBPA for reaching out and trying to support a lot of these guys. But these are issues a lot of times we don't hear about them until it's too late and these guys are on the news.
You are tuned to the Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw discussing the hot button topics of the NBA, and our special guest, 10-year NBA veteran, color commentator, and analyst for the Houston Rockets, Ryan Hollins, joining us. Coming up, we got more Baseline. You do not want to miss out. Great conversation ahead with our man Ryan Hollins. Don't go away.
Are you ready to step up your style without compromising the planet? Introducing the exciting partnership between Blueview Footwear and the 19 Media Group Network. Just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 to start your sustainable style journey. Our friends over at Blueview Footwear are renowned for introducing the world's first fully biodegradable sneaker. By using plant-based plastics, they are leading a revolution in cleaner materials and manufacturing. They have sleek and contemporary styles that cater to a wide range of tastes. Blueview Footwear believes that fashion and sustainability can coexist harmoniously. Explore their incredible collection of eco-friendly footwear by visiting bit.ly/Blueview19. If you let us know you made a purchase, we'll shout you out on our next show. Again, just visit bit.ly/Blueview19 today, and you'll see the ultimate collaboration of fashion, sustainability, and media excellence.
We are back. Callie Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast. And on with us, we have 10-year NBA veteran, color commentator, and analyst for the Houston Rockets, our man Ryan Hollins, joining us in a really insightful and important conversation. We talk about the NBA veteran and their transition, where their placement is, not just in the game of basketball on the court, but also possibly off the court as well, too. And Ryan, earlier before, you had highlighted something that we had jotted down to say, I know we're going to ask Ryan about this, and you already read in. So mind you, your mental telepathy game, your ESP game is on point already. You talked about the locker room veteran and also the contributor veteran. That's the way that we kind of labeled it. So a guy like a Udonis Haslem, who doesn't see a lot of minutes, but yet his voice resonates to not just the younger players, but also throughout the organization, up and down the organization. And then you look at those who are actually producing for teams like the Andre Drummonds and the Jeff Greens, the Al Horfords, are making significant role contributions to helping their team eventually get themselves to the NBA finals. What is it like to go through either of those transitions? Because I believe that you have seen yourself in that role during your 10-year NBA career, where your voice, I'm sure, has resonated to a lot of the younger guys, but also, to your point, when called upon, you've been asked to get out there and produce significant minutes in whatever capacity was necessary for you to help that team continue to be successful. What was that like for you as a player? And when we talk about guys like Udonis Haslem and say the Jeff Greens and Al Horfords, what do you think it's like for those guys?
Man, you got to ask yourself who you are as a man. You got to establish your identity. So for me, when I went to Los Angeles, I knew that they needed minutes, solid veteran minutes from a backup big. At that time, DeAndre Jordan was young, free throws were moments of thing for him. And that was expressed to me as just like, hey, DeAndre's the guy, but we need someone to complement the things that he may not be ready to do yet. So, I had myself in a situation where it was like, all right, just go there, ball out, do what you do and compete with a guy like DeAndre and say, nah, anything that I know, he's going to know. Any mindset I have or something I can do to help him and support him, I can do. And this may be at the detriment of me being on this team or me playing the minutes that I could play. And man, I remember Rasheed Hazard, the great Rasheed had that we talked, and I kind of talked to him about that. And he was like, be who you are. Be you. You're a giving person. You wouldn't be in the situation you're in if you weren't giving. So I made sure, man, I poured into DJ on a day-to-day basis, and Blake and all, even Blake, any of the guys that were there. I tried to be the best person, best teammate I could as possible. But even more so specific DJ. And on through my career, shoot, I feel like, hey, it did cut my career short because, you know, prior, those good locker room guys, the veterans, you had 1, 2, 3 of those guys on your team that you probably thought weren't going to play, even if they had good minutes in them, to where now the league towards the end of my career transition said, we're just going to go get 3 young guys, figure out what they can do, throw something at the wall. And if they work out, you know, there's greater value in that. We don't see the value in the veterans. So unfortunately, that's around year 10 for me. Those are the things that kind of hindered my career. But I had to make a choice to say, that's what it's going to be. Shoot, I got to Sacramento. I tried to get Boogie Cousins all I could. You know, now Boogie Cousins is an all-star, trying to be a multi-year all-star. You know what I'm saying? So there's nothing I could really teach him as a role player. But that was my goal, is to make sure that he was competing every day, professionalism was there, and just being a support system. You know, and I embraced that role. But some guys don't do that, and it's not a shot to them. I don't knock anybody who does that, because it's still very competitive. This is the way that you feed your family, and it's not for everybody. We think back to the NFL. Ben Roethlisberger had a thing when a young quarterback was coming. He was like, man, I ain't got none for him. Brett Favre didn't have none for Aaron Rodgers. You know what I'm saying? Aaron Rodgers didn't have none for Jordan Love. You trying to take my spot, dog. There's only one of these out here. So if that's who you are, be who you are. Stand on business. If you're a guy who gives, keep giving. If you're a guy who's competing for your family, it's nothing personal. It's all business, and we can be buddies off the court, off the field. Go be that, you know? So that's where I stand to that. But sometimes it does change the longevity, and I think the communication with the organization, you know, I think should be good. Shoot, I'm not going to say no names. I fell in a situation, oh, you're good with me. As long as I got a job, you got a job. Wherever you are, I'm here. You know, they'll give you that lip service, you know? So sometimes, too, if you want that longevity in the league, even more so now, you kind of got to go give some good minutes. Or, you know, hey, I'll say this. When I was in Sacramento, I had an opportunity to probably get traded to Cleveland. Now, this is when Cleveland brought in, LeBron brought in Mozgov and Tristan and those guys. And I think they needed like a backup big something. Shoot, I would have been a piece of a championship run. But I was like, nah, I'm going to be loyal to Sacramento, stay here in Sacramento. And, hey, I should be able to do this for the next 5-6 years. I wasn't on the team the next year. There were no phone calls. So, you know, I probably should have got up and made that move. But later on, you got to say, dang, am I going to move my kids or move my family? You know, even the year overseas, it's a single man's life, you know, so you got to factor in a lot of those equations, and especially within your transition. But it's a lot that goes into it, man. And at the same time, you are a lot of times still finding yourself and who you are.
I just want to quickly follow up on something you just said a little bit ago, Ryan. So, and I don't want you to reveal or break any confidence in the conversations that you have, but just to get an idea of it, do coaches, your agents or maybe agents of the organization, do they actually pull you to the side and actually give you this assessment of what they actually want from you, what they need from you? You know what I'm saying? When going through these contractual obligations or agreements, like, do they tell you, kind of give you an overall view of what they really need you for? If you're coming in as a veteran to say, help that young superstar, or they're saying, hey, we think that this guy, he's always 50-50 when it comes to the health. We know we're going to need you for these spot minutes. We're going to definitely need you. Like, do they have those kind of conversations, or do you, as the veteran player, understanding and you see the workings, already know where the writing is, so to speak, and you kind of pivot and position yourself accordingly?
Yes and no. You know, those are the conversations that I had beforehand. They vetted, forget the type of game you have. They vetted the type of person you are and the blend that you will be in locker rooms. So that's already sometimes known before you got there. Sometimes it's expressed that, hey, we need you to come in and play minutes, or hey, this guy right here is a priority. You're number 2 and 3. It was Ronnie Turioff was there. Lamar Odom was there. So we had a group of good guys, veterans, and kind of the minutes were kind of, you know, separated out evenly, you know. So those conversations sometimes are had and sometimes they aren't. And think about the NBA. It's not cookie cutter in every organization. It's actually vastly different. So I'll give you, for instance, In Dallas, Mark Cuban's going to be the last say on all those calls. You're not going to make any move without Mark moving that. We found out with all due respect in Milwaukee, Giannis Antetokounmpo, the final say making those calls over there. Okay, a general manager may hold heavyweight. The coach may hold heavyweight and be the final say. So whatever those visions are, they do different from organization to organization. But like for a guy like myself, you know, part of the longevity is learning how to move and weave and be an asset to an organization, because when you're younger, they're just trying to find out and figure out what you could end up being. But when you're older, you got to fit in and make sure that thing runs smoothly. So that's part of the adjustment. And just know that sometimes the organization, they don't know what's going on, and then you end up flowing in a way that they're like, man, thank you. Look at the way you've helped this guy uplift. You know, are you an asset or a liability? And I think we ask ourselves that so much more than just from an NBA level, and that's a part of longevity. You know, sometimes everybody got game at a certain point. They're not a big difference. You're gonna go, you play, you know, 20 plus minutes. Everybody gonna go out and get a double, and everybody's gonna, you know, have a good showing. But hey, what are you bringing to the table? And sometimes it's productivity. Sometimes it's someone to mesh and make that thing work. And I think overall, that's your assessment of seeing the understanding of an organization. I feel also too, as an analyst, that's helped me because I know the temperature of what's going on. I never just speak from just a player perspective. I'm gonna always take care of my players. I know the front office. I know the coaches. I know how all these different entities have to intertwine and work together.
Ryan, I gotta harken back to something else you said again earlier, and it's gonna lead us into our next part of the conversation. Maybe we're gonna jump around here a little bit, it looks like. But you talk about teams and organizations sometimes already know who you are. They may kind of prejudged you, right? And now we have that aspect of where I think my guy Cal had indicated a couple episodes ago. It's like, yeah, we do see some players who get excommunicated based on prejudgment. So I want to ask you, and this is just opinion, right? What happens in an excommunicated situation? Is it just like a DeMarcus Cousins who was an all-star, right? And, you know, multi-time all-star, but then has perceived to have whatever level of attitude and feels like he can't be a locker room presence. I've been trying to figure out the difference between an Isaiah Thomas and an Ish Smith. Ish Smith is still in the league, you know, doing his thing. What happens? Like, are these teams and organizations like truly prejudging the players before they get an opportunity to maybe reinvent themselves? Or is it just, you know, sometimes if you flew too high, too close to the sun, as I like to say, they feel like, well, you know what, you were once an all-star, you're not going to be able to accept a lesser role.
Throw Carmelo in that mix. Carmelo should have, what he missed 1 year, 2 years, he never should have did that. How do you fit in our organization? Are you a guy that's just going to come in, may never get in the game and play and be happy, bring energy and uplift those guys? Or are you trying to get to your next contract? So these are all question marks that are asked. Hey, we're going to make a call to your next 3 teams. And if 3 out of 3 of these coaches are bad mouthing you, we're going to kind of go along with that. How did you handle your last situation? You know, what equity have you built? You know, hey, what does this team need? Some people are like, some organizations are like, we're just going all young. We're going to figure it out. Some organizations, and I think we're seeing now a trend of leaning back towards the veteran presence in there. So every place is different, but the impact that you make is important. And then sometimes, you know what's crazy? My last year in the NBA by far was my most productive from a playing standpoint. I impacted the game every time I was in. Our team played faster. In fact, there were scouting reports built for what I was doing once I got on the team. You had coaches screaming from the sideline, watch the lob, watch the lob, watch the lob, watch this, watch this. And it was such an impact that wasn't seen. So it's always different. It's good to have friends behind the scenes. It's good to network. It's good to have a good agent that can make a pull or two. So it's a million factors, and like all you need is that one good opportunity. So it is tough, and sometimes you get in an organization, you prove your worth, and you plant yourself in. So there's so many differing opinions, and I think what people have to understand, there's like on every team, I wouldn't even say that. There may be 15 to 20 unreplaceable guys in the NBA, and I may be pushing it. We're gonna say real talk, hey, how many guys like coach can go? He got to stay. Giannis, Luka, they trying to push LeBron out, but he's showing his value. KD, you know, Steph. Like, how many irreplaceable guys? The rest of us are we can do it out. We can do it out. So you got to fit, you got to be liked. And then the young kids are all potential. We don't know what they are, but you don't get rid of the young ones because, man, he could turn into one of those guys. And then we'll say, hey, man, there's 35, whatever, those young guys that could turn into something. Hey, the John Morant, we're not giving up on him because he could be that deal. We're not giving up on Zion. We're not giving up on those guys because they could turn into, they're already kind of one of those guys, but they could turn into, one of those guys. So for the rest of us, you get in where you fit in. And, you got to understand your place. And like I said, everywhere is different. So you kind of go like in business, right? We go from the top and then we work on down. Hey, priority. We hear in free agency. This is priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. You get later on as veteran, you're the last on that priority list. So you better find somewhere to fit because Isaiah Thomas easily could be in an Ishmael, bro. Like, you know what I'm saying? And it's nothing personal to either of those guys. It's just relationships or, or even, like you said, team perception, Warren.
You're tuned to The Baseline. Callie Warren Shaw with our special guest, 10-year NBA veteran and color commentator for the Houston Rockets, Ryan Hollins, joining us in an awesome conversation that we are having right now about the NBA veteran, not just their transition, but their role in the current NBA. So with that being said, Ryan, let's talk about some of these guys, man, that are making the NBA vet look so damn good right about now, right? Andre Drummond, Kevin Love, JaVale McGee, Derrick Rose. I mean, these dudes right now are so important in the fabric of what their teams need and where these teams can actually eventually be. I think when it's all said and done at the end of this NBA season. Talk to me about what you're seeing from the NBA's veterans presence right now. And even if you want, speak to what that is like for your Houston Rockets, for VanVleet and Brooks, how important they have been to what we're seeing in the resurgence of the respect level that the Houston Rockets have earned and garnered through, from this season. Because these moves are not being made on the premise of it's just about the win now. I think there's also a real understanding that this is, long-term, that the contributions being made by these guys are having long-term effects that is leading to the success for the organization and the team, respectively.
Okay, so I'm going to break it down like this. NBA moves in trends. Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors were so unique that everybody said, we want three-point shooting. Let's go get from the point guard to the center. We want shooting. We're going to go after all shooting, and we're going to get that. Now the league is going back into these trends. We're seeing more of a traditional NBA where the traditional point guard is making a comeback because he has IQ. He's putting guys in the right spots. That is a difference maker. The big man is coming back into the game of the NBA. Our best players, Giannis Antetokounmpo, let's call him, he's the freak, but let's call him a big man. Joel Embiid, Jokic, our back-to-back MVPs are big men. So the big man is making a huge difference. That young boy Wemby down there, okay? Look at what Gobert is doing now this time around, his impact in Minnesota. So the big man is making a huge comeback, but we're seeing also, to your point, along with those things, the veteran is needed because that's the glue. When you need big minutes and there's all this parity that we hadn't seen in a very long time in the NBA, those veterans that are ready to play on game 46 and game 47. And when we need a last shot, he's not going to go out there and forget to play. These guys are bringing a lot of value. So what you've seen in Houston is a complete culture shift. Fred VanVleet changed the whole offense. He's got one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the NBA. I think Chris Paul is ahead of him, but Chris is injured and hurt. Dillon Brooks has changed the defense with his impact, and Jeff Green is just the glue behind the scenes. And then Coach Ime Udoka is a guy who played that role in his time in the league, so he appreciates the veterans and he knows how to do things obviously their right way. So that voice is being echoed through the entire organization. But the comeback of these veterans is because guess what? Like Carl, these coaches in these organizations are in situations where they got to win now. So they like, yo, forget that experiment and stuff. Like, Drummond, go get me rebounds, dog. Like, nah, we got to win. We're getting beat on the boards. Big fella, go out there. Forget developing that young boy. We need to play these vets. So we're starting to see that. And that's something that's coming back around. So remember, I want y'all to steal this, all right? The traditional point guard is coming back. Thank God we got Fred VanVleet, the big man and the veteran. And this is something that every team went away from, because what you saw, the Steph Curry effect, everybody tried to be Golden State, but everybody didn't have a Steph Curry. And if it wasn't having a Steph Curry, it was having just the best, baddest man on the planet. If you didn't have a LeBron James or a KD, no shot. Okay, those guys were that special. And now with the parity, now you got to get back to playing basketball. Now you got to get back to playing basketball. And the skill set of the NBA player is the highest that we have ever seen at any level of NBA basketball. We got these big guys who can shoot threes, who can handle, who can step back and do anything that guards can do. But again, we're loving to see it as true hoop heads. Traditional NBA is back. Mark my words, and you're starting to see it.
Ryan, last couple ones here for me. You brought so much light and I think positivity to this conversation. We're so appreciative for that as well. Want to get your opinion on a couple of things here, though. So, like, a guy like Dante Exum in Dallas left and was able to kind of come back. Then we have some G League guys like Kenneth Faried, Darius Baisley, even Jeremy Lamb, John Jenkins. They're out there. They're still hooping. Is there a name from the John Walls, Tyreek Evans? Is this not about you playing favorites, but is there a guy who you'd like to see get another chance, if you will, like Dante Exum has gotten in Dallas?
Ooh, man, John is my dog. I definitely like to see John back. I love what IT's doing. He's still grinding. Like to see him back. I want to see Boogie out there. It's crazy. Like, a lot of NBA teams are getting smaller and smaller. So, like, they don't even have a center to guard the post. So Boogie against your second string center, that's a cookout, you know? Like, obviously he's going to have to move his feet and all that, but that's a cookout. That's going to be definitely hard to guard. But, man, I do love when those guys get a shot and they come back around, man. I was always told this like this. It's hard to stay in the NBA, but hell, it's about 10 times harder to get back into the NBA. So once you out, man, it is tough. So big ups to even like a Carmelo Anthony, man. Like when Carmelo kind of, did his thing, like that was tough, man. Like for him to get back and then still kind of play and compete at a high level or kind of go out on his own court. I'm tired. It's good enough for me. Like that was tough. That big ups to Melo for that. So man, I'm with it for those guys grinding. And then I told you, you hit that weird patch, that funny patch, that newborn baby patch where all the hair ain't grew in. And you're like, do I really want to work out every day hard? Am I really working out every day hard to get my shot, to kind of get on the team and get a chance? Because, if that call comes, you got to be in shape. That's tough, man. You got to be in shape.
I want to see Kenneth Faried. I don't know about y'all, but I would love to see Animal back in the game, man.
For sure. Like, he's still got a lot to go.
And the interesting thing, Ryan, you please weigh in on this from my perspective. The reason why I want to see this is because I'm an old school head. I always bought into the battle of the trenches. I grew up watching you know what I'm saying, going blow for blow with one of the better, centers or power forwards in the game. When you played against the Blake Griffins, you played against, all of the other, really athletic type of guys, and proving that not only can you body them up, but you can get that key rebound. I just always was a fan of the battle in the paint, like to see that war going on. So that's why I'm enamored when I see Jokic taking on Sengun. I'm enamored when I see Karl Anthony Towns, going up against Joel Embiid, because I want to see when those guys actually do have their imprint of not just what they're doing, passing the ball and shooting a three, but also when it really matters, when it counts, to get in the blocks and make something happen, to be an intimidating force. That's why I want to see some of these old veterans come in there, because I think that they can shake things up again with some of these newbies who just feel like camping out by the 3-point line is what's going to get them their bag. I think when it's all said and done, when it really comes down to it, it's what you can do. Look at what LeBron James just did the other night against the Golden State Warriors. That wasn't just him just shooting threes. That was him proving to people yet again at almost 40 years old that I am still a freak when it comes to my athletic ability and my ability to battle young, old, small, whatever the case may be.
I tell you right now, behind the scenes, I would probably say 70% of front offices, the irony, the slap in the face, they're looking for a Ryan Hollins. They're looking for a backup big who can block shots, run the floor, and finish upstairs. And they're looking for traditional point guards. They're looking for somebody who can come into a first or second unit and run the show. and move the basketball and get a good look and minimize turnovers. As teams are looking to win, those are the roles that are being looked for, you know. And it's crazy. It's like not that many guys out. And it's funny you talk about Kenneth Reed. Why I believe he could definitely play is because when you were a 1% athlete, you were a guy with just bunnies, and then you get old, you still have NBA bounce. That's why we see LeBron. LeBron was a 1%er, probably a 0.001% that we've ever seen play. So we're still seeing him dunk and everything. And it's like, that's the longevity sometimes, is those super, super dumb athletic guys who have the bounce and have the giddy up, because now they're just regular NBA athletes, okay? But they have the mental side, and that's kind of fun to see that come around. So, you know, when you talk about longevity, those are like a DeMar DeRozan. Shout out my dog DeMar. Like, DeMar is still playing at such a high level because he was such a freak athlete. So he's still more athletic than you, because he was 10 times more athletic, but now he's just normal athletic. But now he got the footwork, he has the skill, he has the mindset. So that's one thing when we go, man, how can you play forever? How can LeBron do this? Because he's from 1% to now he's 10% of athletes, or just normal, the median, or a little bit higher, you know, and with size too. So that's a huge part of longevity.
My last one here, Ryan, in this, we're going to pick on somebody here a little bit, but not in a negative way. Do you think will we see another Vince Carter, if you will, somebody who was truly at the top of their game, who truly just aged so gracefully, had the right temperament, you know, bounced around, went from team to team, whatever the case would be, but never caused an issue? Is there a guy in this league who was at the highest of highs who you think will be able to take that type of role, even kind of like how Derrick Rose, I guess, is to some degree here now? Is there somebody you could identify that you can see them aging gracefully as their career progresses?
Ooh, okay. So obviously I think I'm on point. DeRozan is one of those guys. I think he's probably the closest, because that high level of athleticism. Shoot, my guy, Jalen Green. I know we're talking like 10 years away or 15 years away, but skinny guys, you know, for the most part, skinny guys don't get hurt because they're skinny. You know, they just become a lot more durable. Remember Darren Collison, DC, played forever, you know?
That's what I'm saying with Vince. Vince was just, he was so just mannerable in everything he did.
For
and
sure.
Was like, you know what? It's cool.
I played with Vince. You're right. I don't know if we ever saw Vince in that role either. So the same way with some of these guys, unless you know them, I don't know them personally, I can't say. But you're right, because it may not be a matter of game. It may be a matter of like, can you take that lesser role? Because if you have the game, but a young guy has the same game, we want you to just kind of like play your role and be cool. And that's where a lot of guys, I think what we've been talking about the whole show, they miss that transition. We're just like, yo, just play it cool. They missed that play it cool part. So I can't rule it out. I know Zach is a worker. I think DeMar is the easy go, like, because we're kind of seeing it now, but he's the easy call, because he's a bucket. He can get to the foul line and he's still going to have the athleticism. Durant's an easy call. I think Durant's already kind of saying, hey, I need some help. Chris Paul. Hats off to Chris Paul, man. Chris Paul has defied the odds. Yeah. With what he's been able to do. I know he's injured now, but man, we thought Chris was over about 5-6 years ago, man. And with his IQ, he's been able to continue to play. So you're right. That is a good call. I may have to think to get a guy that I can come be with. Well, Halliburton, that boy gonna play till the wheels fall off. Halliburton gonna be backing dudes down, and it's gonna be 20 years in for Halliburton for sure. For sure.
Oh man, Ryan, it has been an awesome opportunity to be able to sit down and break bread with you and to get your perspective. This has been such an awesome experience, and to get the insight that you've been able to provide, not just from the side of the player, but also now someone who just analyzes the game, not just commentates the game, but also has an imprint. And it's great when your voice lays resonance to, you know, what we're seeing in this NBA. I think it's so important. And, you know, again, I don't want to speak for myself. I know, man, Shaw will do it. We are appreciative that you had the opportunity to come on and really help us understand how important, one, the NBA veteran is in our current NBA. And number two, why you give us hope that we are going to be able to still see some old souls balling out in this current NBA, man.
Man, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you so much for joining us here today on this show. We really appreciate your insight, and hopefully we will be able to talk a little. This wasn't a negative subject, but again, we'll be able to talk a little bit more current hoops next time we have you on for sure, brother. Thank you so much for being on here.
For sure. Anytime, guys. Keep it up, man. And thank you for having me on, man.
Absolutely. Cali, Warren Shaw, Baseline NBA podcast. Time to do a little aftermath. My man Shaw, as per usual. What more can we say, man? I think we asked really good questions. I think we, should be like the dope interviews prequel.
Well, like I see what you did there. But thanks to Ryan Hollins, man. Make sure you follow him on social at Ryan Hollins. Very easy situation. But he's got his proverbial stuff together, brother. Like he really does. And to see him matriculate through, kind of a journeyman, but got a 10-year NBA career, reinvented himself. He's an awesome family man, really cares, about what he's got going on in his home life as well. And has found a way to marry everything together appropriately where he can still get to his family, still stay within the sport and be a contributor in the way he is. And he's a personality. And I really appreciate how authentic and genuine he was with us here on our show and our platform, and giving us the inside of what it means to transition, from a veteran role to be the locker room guy, or to potentially be somebody who's no longer in the league, and what are you ultimately going to do as a result of, coming to that realization. I think it was just an insightful conversation. I hope our fans and listeners really were able to tap into that, and make sure you follow Ryan, man, because again, he's a great individual.
And more importantly, man, he's a man that stands on his business. He wasn't afraid to speak to, from the heart, and also speak from perspective. And I think that those are two qualities that are just very rare to attain with an individual who's found himself, at the mountaintop that are not a lot of, athletes get the opportunity to say they played in the NBA. There's only a handful, Shaw, you know what I'm saying, of the thousands and thousands of players that have tried to put themselves in a position to be on an NBA roster. Maybe has gotten as far as playing, in the G League, maybe has gotten as far as playing, overseas. But to have the opportunity, to be able to compete against some of the great players in the game of basketball, and to know that your name still resonates, right? Like it's to me, it's phenomenal, and he handles it with the level of graciousness, and he handles it with a sense of humbleness that I think is very rare, which I think is exactly puts him where he is, and that is to be a voice that is recognizing and calling not just the games, but also providing insight to the game of basketball, which I always think is a benefit for people to really appreciate what this game is and where it can go. So yeah, I agree with you, man. And it was so awesome to have him on our show to break down not just the politics, but also to break down the mindset of the NBA veteran as they go through their transitions, making those tough choices, making the sacrifices. And whenever those sacrifices, can extend themselves to longevity with what their careers are going to be and everything like that. It's just been awesome, bro. Awesome.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say on it is this. I think we know the space, the media space is changing. The podcast space is changing. A lot of athletes, in essence, have platforms. I think Ryan is a stark reason as to why. If all the athletes are going to be like him in terms of the way he can express what he's been through, related to what's kind of going on here now, to what it was, understanding the dichotomy between ownership, what it means to be in the locker room. That's why the athlete space is blowing up in the way that it is. And I commend guys like him who have the ability to captain their own ship, create their own platforms and get out there and like you, as you say, and he said, again, stand on business, truly in the way that he does. That's why, I think it's going and trending the way it is because of guys like Ryan Hollins, man. So shouts to him one more time.
Absolutely. So again, we encourage you, if you missed out, where to catch this episode. As always, man, my man Sean and I, we always really we try to put our best foot forward to not only discuss the hot button topics of the NBA, but to bring people on to be able to have great conversations about those hot button topics in the NBA. And I encourage you to, add us on to your listening playlist of shows that covers the NBA. If you haven't already done so. And as always, man, be sure to go and check us out through the 19 Media Group family. Go to www.19mediagroup.com. Be sure to get at us at NBA Baseline or on Instagram at NBA_baseline, on X, Twitter, or whatever we want to call this thing, at NBA Baseline. My man Shaw at Shaw Sports NBA, or me at GameFace Lee. Be sure to go to www.thebaselinenba.com. That's the home site for our shows. Once again, for The Baseline, Callie, Warren, Shaw, we appreciate you guys. Thanks for hopping on board with us this week, and we'll catch up with you next time.